All right, so today I'm going to talk about neutralizing charge within our own minds. And this is a little bit about how physics works within the human condition. And it's also something where if you were to take a little bit of time and sat down with a pen and a paper or even on your computer and identified the things that are still really charged in your mind, right? This is a really simple way to liberate so much of your bandwidth, so much of your vital life force. Balancing the poles is a key to manifestation, because if you think about it, as long as your bandwidth is trapped, fearing what it has deemed really negative or going towards what it has deemed really positive, like in a way you're trapped on a hamster wheel, right? So what the mind has deemed extremely negative, it will avoid like the plague, and what it has deemed extremely positive, it will go towards, often in very stressful ways. So you can imagine, right? And I think we can all relate that that's really stressful and it's really draining. And that's ultimately a lot of times what gives rise to the spiritual impulse. But there's always some ways for you to get involved and do a little bit of tweaking, so to speak. So I'll start by saying, the story of Adam and Eve, right? When they were in the Garden of Eden, they were in paradise. And when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? And therefore they entered the world of polarity, they left paradise. And so in your spiritual journey, right, if you're trying to make contact with the ground of being, you have to let go of concepts of your idea of what is good and bad, right? You have to let go of knowledge, even positive knowledge, even knowledge that has been really helpful to you, so that you can make contact with this fundamental ground of being that comes before knowledge, right? So, but in our everyday life, right, maybe we've had that experience and we come back, but there might be certain things in our mind that remain very charged. And so I'm not talking about finding every thought in your mind and ironing it out, but if there's things in your life that are really coming up often, it is worth it to neutralize the charge and therefore go back to paradise, right? No longer be trapped in polarity, no longer be owned by the astral body, which is the desire body that seeks the essence of what you think you want outside of yourself and therefore drains you. So before I begin with specific examples, I will say that of course, the answer to every question about how to heal the mind, right, how to heal polarity, inner polarity, is to know who you are. And who are we? Well, we are intelligence, love, creativity, wisdom, eternity, awareness, right? And so when we educate the parts of ourselves that are really charged with whatever divine medicinal quality they need, the charge drops, right? So if you are seeking outside of yourself things that you have deemed positive, maybe it's external validation, maybe it's a certain achievement in a career, which isn't inherently bad, but if you are striving towards something at the expense of your health, of your emotional awareness, of what is real and valuable to you, of your family life, and some people are really designed to be really kind of the love of their life is their career. And I'm not saying this is always bad. You have to tune into your own experience and say, like, am I seeking what I want outside of myself in a stressful way from my unconscious male energy that is victory oriented and that is ruthless? And that could look like striving for things at the expense of my health, of my emotional reality, of the amount of rest that I need, of the relationships in my life, maybe at the expense of relationship with my children, and so on and so on. So the medicine for that, right, what we have deemed really positive, is to know that you can create what you want inside of yourself and to actually do that. And I talk a lot about creating frequency and how incredibly easy and simple it is. So if I want to feel successful, if I want to feel joyful, if I want to feel beautiful, then I have the ability to sit down at first with my eyes closed and to feel my heart and maybe feel my higher self channel that I talked about in another video, and connect to myself and practice creating frequency, practice tuning into frequency, right? Because when I show my mind that is stuck in polarity, my mind that has exited the Garden of Eden, which is knowledge of what I truly am, right? Being myself. When I educate my mind that is polarized then about what it truly is, then it transcends polarity, right? So you transcend what you have deemed extremely positive by actually exercising creator consciousness. And what I've noticed, and this is one of the trickster energies in humanity, people will listen to this teaching over and over and over, whether it be the beautiful Abraham Hicks material, whether it be the Hermetic law, that you can use your will to create a frequency, but they won't actually do it, right? And that's the trickster in you that wants to keep you stuck, which is ultimately teaching you to rise up and have conviction and use your healthy male energy to take action on your highest understanding about the Hermetic laws. So, right, to heal this polarity, to heal the parts of you that that are stressfully striving towards things that they have deemed positive, right? You show that part of you that you are the creator, that nothing outside of you will give you what you truly want, because what this truly wants is to go back into the central channel, right? Into self-knowledge, true self-knowledge. And so it's teaching us, the poles are teaching us to come back to true self-knowledge. And again, the way that you heal this is to show yourself that you create, and then to actually do it, and do it to the amount that you need to do it, right? Practice creating frequency, practice relaxing, practice tuning out of things that are harmful to you. Use your discipline, use your intention, make more decisions throughout the day. Use opportunities to focus your mind instead of remaining in unconscious female energy where you're really floaty and kind of directionless, right? Being in unconscious female energy is different from being. Being feels like radiating from the heart, right? And that's another way to heal both of these, right? When you are in your heart and you're radiating your presence into reality, there's a joy that is already beyond the poles. But the fact of the matter is that the momentum of what you have polarized within yourself will occasionally drag you back into itself, right? And so to understand how to heal these things is important. So let's talk about what we deem negative. And like I said, right, we exit the Garden of Eden when we eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, because essentially God is everything, right? And when I have deemed something good and bad, then I can be stuck in judgment. Not necessarily, right? It's not paradoxical to the fact that the whole universe is a mind showing up in various states of energy, and you can refrain from judgment but still use your discernment, right, to not choose to include things in your experience, to not choose to ingest music, people, right, YouTube channels, etc., etc. This is not about, there's no conflict between using discernment and refraining from calling things good and bad. But it's often a little bit more difficult to neutralize these things. Well, it depends on the person, it depends on the psyche. But let's say, let's talk about medical diagnoses, right? Because like I said, the idea is that when we enter this world of polarity, we tend to get on this hamster wheel where we escape this and go to this in a stressful way. So if we neutralize them, what we do essentially is shorten the distance between the poles and we create equanimity. And so, first of all, I will pause and say that because the way to heal this is to create, is to be the creator and both being and creator, if you are truly in the radiant energy of being, or in a creator consciousness where you're focusing, in that moment you are healing your mind. So I'm addressing like stubborn parts of your mind that tend to stubbornly drag you out of that. So let's talk about medical diagnoses, because medical diagnoses have so much collective fear, especially the word cancer, right? There's so much fear around the word cancer. There's so much fear around the word Parkinson's. There's so much fear around the word dementia. There's so much fear around the words suicidal depression. And first, I will say that if you want a really good resource, if you are living a medical diagnosis and you would like lots and lots and lots of evidence that you can heal no matter what, you can heal. And if you don't want to heal, that's okay too, right? Part of healing the poles is to just accept, right? If I'm on that train of striving, first to accept that about myself. Which is the female quality, right? The unconscious male needs that female love. And then to raise it into the octave of the high male quality and show it that, oh, we are the creator. So of course, just to accept that you're afraid, accept that, accept whatever is, right? That's like step one always. You just accept like, oh, I'm terrified of my cancer coming back. I had cancer. And for a while, I would get so afraid of having a checkup. I would get so afraid of getting my blood work done, for good reason, because my body went through trauma at the hospital, and going to the hospital isn't fun for my body. So I had to go through a process of neutralizing this charge around cancer. And really what we're highly charged, whatever subject is highly charged in our life, is really the tip of the iceberg about a larger energy that's a big part of our personality. So in my case, like terror has been a big part of my personality. And so I've had to do, a lot of like, I've had to give myself a lot of care to neutralize this charge. So let's say you have a medical diagnosis. Go to the Joe Dispenza YouTube testimonial page, and if you want to heal, look at the end-stage cancers, the stage 4 cancers, the Parkinson's, the fused bones, the suicidal depression, the everything, countless stories of people who have healed. So of course, like, one way to neutralize the charge of what you've deemed negative is to show yourself evidence that the fear isn't rational, right? And that has a lot of power. And to take a pen and a paper and say, wait a minute, mind. And this is kind of what Abraham Hicks suggests, but again, like, people don't do this. So to take a paper and be like, okay, I understand that my body is really intelligent, that it's connected to source energy, that it has really amazing powers of healing, and that perhaps the medical community isn't aware of that. So I can give their awareness and their language and how they think of my body less importance than how I feel about my body, which is truly that it's connected to infinite intelligence, right? To the best of your ability, just soften the charge just a little bit. So first, you accept that you're afraid, and it's okay that you're afraid. If you try to fight with fear, right, that's just fear fighting with fear. So you have love and you say, okay, you raise the unconscious female, which is lost and overwhelmed, to a higher octave, and you say, no, it's all right. It's okay that you're afraid. It's fair. It's okay. You're not wrong. Then to educate it, right, with the higher quality of the male, and to say, give it some divine logic, give it some reason, give it some evidence. In the case of medical diagnosis, I've given you a good resource. Right? What else do we deem really negative in society? Well, failure, right? Failing in maybe getting divorced, maybe getting out of a relationship, maybe leaving a job. I used to be really, I had a negative charge about divorce, right? Which is funny because because in my human design, my sun gate is called the gate of divorce, which is like the knowledge of how to know when to disconnect from something, right? Which is a lot about what I teach. But see, the thing is, if you're stuck in polarity, right, you can't see what is. You're not in the center able to see something for what it is. So if I think divorce is so negative, right, then even if I'm in a marriage that's not good for me, like, I won't take action. My healthy male and my healthy female won't work together because I'm stuck in unhealthy female with an idea from a negative charge that, like, oh no, like, divorce is not an option. And this comes from a lot of, spiritual conditioning, religious conditioning, lifetimes of being maybe Catholic and Jewish and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, though, and my point is that as long as you stay in a charge, right, as long as part of your mind is stuck in an extreme pole, right, you won't be able to see something clearly. Right? This is part of what the trickster does. It keeps you polarized within yourself. So to say, how do you heal this? Well, as always, right? How you heal everything is to educate yourself about who you really are. So who I really am might be that I'm actually unhappy in this situation. Who I really am is infinite intelligence. Who I really am is valuable. Who I really am is an individual that has inherent value, like, that has nothing to do with a comparison with anyone else. And if I desire to leave the situation, that's good and well. And if I desire to live a life that might not be similar to other conventional lifestyles, that's good and well too, right? So using your divine quality of logic and reason and understanding to educate this part of your mind that's polarized, to say, like, hey, you're good enough as you are, right? And if you're unhappy in a situation, you can go. You are free, right? The high octave of the male is like this knowledge of freedom. You are free to go. You are not trapped. The idea that you are a prisoner is a belief, and that is a belief that shows up in so many contexts, including a belief that I'm stuck in a relationship. If you feel stuck in a relationship, okay, that's not true. And it's just part of your mind that doesn't feel free, that doesn't want to confront the parts of you that might be afraid of being by yourself for a while or being apart from this particular person. That's really what's going on, right? But the fact is that you are literally free and you are obligated to do nothing. So to realize that freedom, right, that's part of how you exit the poles as well. You are free to live who you are because you are God expressing. And to try to superimpose, right, an idea like I should never get divorced, or I should never, I spent lots of money on my law education, and people in my life were like, oh, you're gonna throw that away? It's like, I didn't throw it away. Going to law school really helped me because I used to be very floaty and spacey, and law school actually trained my mind to be able to take huge amounts of data and distill it into simple logic, which is what I do now. So it was all part of my life. It's all one, right? But if you have an idea, right? If you have an idea that, oh my God, leaving my job is going to be so bad, it's going to be so dangerous, like I'm going to be judged or I'm not going to make enough money. The good news is you don't have to take action yet on things that you're afraid of, but just work out the polarized aspect of your mind that has the fear. So look at the world right now. Look at the reset that we're in, where more and more people are living what they want to do. The universe supports that, right? So many institutions are changing and transforming. And the fact of the matter is that if you remain in an idea that something is negative, like leaving my particular situation, wasting my education, if you're in an idea like that, you won't be able to actually feel your intuition, which is here, right? Your intuition bubbles up from your heart. Sometimes it drops into the top of your head, but think about it. If you're stuck in these poles, either the astral body owns you, seeking out desperately what it desires. And of course, again, the way to heal that is to create the essence of what you desire and to show your mind that you are the creator. And on this side, right, to accept where you are, and to use divine logic and wisdom and reason to softly bring yourself out of that polarization. Because when you're stuck in these polarizations, you're not in the Garden of Eden. You're not in paradise. You're not in the radiance of who you truly are. So it's interesting because this is yet another synchronicity, which I have talked so much about, healing the genders. And this is a more non-personal way that the genders manifest, right? As the negative and positive poles. Negative and positive, really in the most impersonal sense, has nothing to do with what the ego judges as negative and positive. The negative pole is just the womb of creation, and the positive pole is the creative principle. But when the ego gets involved, the knowledge of good and evil, right, what happens is that we get trapped in polarity. And so, of course, the exercises of really being present, right, feeling your heart, perceiving from your heart channel, those things start to bring the poles, reconcile the poles. But where you have cases where the mind is stubborn and is still in polarity, maybe there's something you can do about it. And again, the way to heal stubborn parts of the mind is to show them who they are. How do you show your astral body that is going towards, striving stressfully towards what it thinks it wants? You create frequency. You create environment by relaxing, by making choices that resonate with you, by making choices that are good for your health, right? Because it's seeking comfort. But if I create comfort right now by relaxation, by doing what feels good to my body, by creating a frequency, right, then this is not going to pull me on the hamster wheel. And if I, a big one on this side is fear of death. And this might be a big jump for some people, and it can apply to the diagnosis. It can apply to so many areas of life, but like worst case scenario, like if something is going on with your body, right, the worst case scenario in our mind is always that we're gonna die. So really to just accept that and say like, you know what, worst case scenario, like the worst case scenario is that I die. I'm gonna die eventually. Actually, I'm never gonna die. I'm gonna drop this body eventually, right? So the worst case scenario isn't even that bad because I literally can't die. I'm a literal eternal consciousness that cannot perish. And so that's silly. And what's so interesting, and I've seen this from in my own mind, because I've had to do this a few times throughout my life, having lived a Kundalini awakening and having such extreme symptoms, like when I'm driving or when I'm in public, I'm afraid that I'm going to crash my car. I'm afraid about, and I in my mind, I just said, you know what? Screw it. Like, worst case scenario is that I crash my car. Am I going to stop going to the grocery store? No. Am I going to let that fear keep me in unconscious female energy? Unconscious female energy doesn't move forward. No, I'm going to use my decision and I'm going to trust the universe. I'm going to say, hey, worst case scenario is that I crash my car, but I'm going to live my life anyway. Whoa. Right? It's like, two other really great examples. Well, before I go there, I will finish this by saying, because we can't die, right? This fear, it doesn't really have any real weight. And what I've noticed in myself and other people who are actually in my life right now making their transition, when somebody makes peace with it, right, which is the divine female quality, like the fear just goes away. They just feel like they're being called somewhere else. They're no longer afraid of the idea of that idea, good and evil. Oh, I'm a failure because I'm dying, because I'm leaving this world. No, you're not. Oh, I'm at peace. I just simply feel called to somewhere else. I feel a little bit tired of this world. Okay. And what's so ironic is sometimes people heal just because they've made peace with it, and sometimes people go because they're being called somewhere else. So another example from my life about this, right, giving up the pole of negativity, is when I was stuck in the behavior of bulimia. I was stuck there for a long time because it was hard for me to accept myself. I had placed such a negative definition on the fact that I was harming myself in that way, that I was doing that behavior that was hurting my throat, hurting my stomach, and hurting a lot of parts of my body. And so for a person that had been through all this medical trauma with cancer and everything, it was like hard for me at the time to say like, wait, can I actually stop berating myself for what I'm doing? Actually, yes, I can. Can I actually accept myself exactly as I am, even though I'm doing something that I ultimately don't want to do forever? Can I accept, right? It's like the worst case scenario with like the death thing. Can I accept that the worst case scenario is that I will be like this forever? Yeah, yes, I can. That's educating this part of your mind about who you really are, which is eternal acceptance, right? So, and I've told that story that like, that was the day I started to heal from that. That was the day that behavior started to disappear from my existence, because I no longer made it my enemy. And it reminds me of John Nash in A Beautiful Mind, who had schizophrenia. Like all of the beings that were chasing him, right? Kind of like hungry ghosts were chasing him. When he befriended them and made them in his mind not be his enemies, they kind of quieted and went into the background. It's the same thing, right? Polarity, right? Making something really bad and really good is what keeps us out of paradise. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have preferences. That doesn't mean that we don't evolve towards better versions of ourselves or higher octaves of ourselves. That is not a paradox, right? These are two hermetic principles that go together, which is balancing the genders and also the law of vibration, which is that there's just this fact of physics that there are several octaves of our expression, and we can choose to embody higher octaves of ourselves. So, long story short, balancing the genders. It's interesting, balancing the genders, that hermetic principle corresponds to the crown chakra. And if you think about what that means, I've talked a lot about what that actually means in human life. Now I'm talking about a more impersonal, like law-based thing. That is a hermetic principle. But why would that be? Like the crown chakra is the only place where the male and the female, right, are perfectly balanced. And when you achieve that balance, it's like your direct highway to God. Why would that be? Because when you're stuck in a pole, when you're either in unconscious female energy, right, identified with sensation, overwhelmed, unable to move forward, if you're an unconscious male, ruthless and future oriented, ignoring intuition, if you've made so many things in your mind bad and so many things in your mind good that you're going towards what's good and you're avoiding what's bad, you can't go up. That's the clue, that's the message, that's what that map is all about. And so I am sharing what comes through me as how I understand how to balance the genders, you know, to inspire within you, you know, how that might look in your life, how you might apply that in your life, how you might balance the energies in your chakras, in your life, in your behavior. So that's my message for today. Take some time, perhaps, like if you have something, especially the ones, well, I don't want to say especially, but the negatives were more prevalent in my life than what I deem positive in a way. But like if you identify some things that keep coming up that your mind is afraid of, whether it's going back to the doctor, right? Soften the charge, take yourself out of polarity, take yourself out of hell, essentially, right? Just take a little bit of time and do it, right? I also talk a lot about these things to inspire people to actually do these things that we might have heard of before, but we're just listening, right? Which is a lack of healthy male energy. The healthy male actually applies this stuff. So that's my message for today. Have a beautiful day.